Hello everyone, Kenton Kovescu from the RocketBlocks team here. In this mock interview video, we're sitting down with Matthew Wu, who is a product manager at Facebook, and he's specifically focused on the Facebook Marketplace products. In this mock interview video, we're going to be doing a product design and product sense question, where Matthew is asked to design a new social feature for one of the popular video streaming services from a big tech company. So let's go ahead and jump in and see what Matthew comes up with. Okay, so thanks for joining us. So the question I want to walk through with you today is, imagine you are a product manager you can pick one of these companies, but Netflix or Amazon, and you're specifically focused on video functionality. And we want you to tell us how you might think about designing a social feature to augment these type of video services that are out
Awesome. So, when I think about this, I guess maybe just to broaden it a little bit, there's video services that are, very content heavy where they obviously produce their own content. And then there's other platforms like YouTube where it's, more of a third party content system where people upload a variety of things.
there.
Is there one type of company that you care about that I focus on, or, it's really up to me?
It's up to you to choose which direction you want to go, but definitely, as you mentioned, like there's Netflix, there's Amazon, there's Hulu, there's YouTube, more UGC focused, but you can pick a direction that you think is most interesting.
Yeah, I think what is a little bit more interesting, just because when I think about, production quality content, I don't know how much social I want in it. I kind of just want to focus in on that experience.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that are social is like maybe watching with someone, that's been done before. And so I think there might be some really interesting actually things on the UGC side,
Okay.
especially with the emergence of like TikTok and whatnot.
Yep.
So let's go down that path.
Okay, cool.
So with that, I think one interesting area that I want to dive into a little bit is on YouTube. I think that they're the world's biggest user generated platform, so I think that it's probably worth looking there and find some interesting use cases.
Yep.
Does this sound good to you?
Yep, sounds good to me.
Cool. So when I think about social, I think you have to think it within the context of why YouTube or these platforms want to do this, right? And I think probably the mission, and I forget exactly what YouTube's mission is, but I would imagine it's around providing useful, engaging content. And so I think the primary metric here, or how do we tie, is like, how do we use social as a way to keep people more engaged with the content on YouTube?
Yeah.
And so when we think about that, then one of the key elements there is content. What type of content exists on YouTube? And, personally, from my experience, I think I use YouTube for three different reasons. One is for entertainment,
Mm-hmm.
The Jimmy Kimmel's, rewatches.
Yeah.
The other one would be around like news updates, during the presidential race. That was the primary way in which I got all the highlights. And I think the last thing that is emerging is this whole learning ecosystem that's on YouTube, right? All these videos on, whether it be math or cooking or dance videos. I think those are all really interesting things.
Yep.
I think those are the three kind of top use cases that I see people using YouTube for. And so the question then is, which of these use cases could really increase the value and engagement of sellers if there was a social aspect to it?
Mm.
Right? I think that's kind of how I'm thinking about this problem. So I guess before I dive in, any questions? How does this sound so far?
I mean, I think YouTube is an interesting place to start. I think when you talk about the different buckets of content on YouTube, completely agree. Those are pretty much the same type of things I use YouTube for: entertainment, some educational videos, some news. The last thing you mentioned, you mentioned, when I think about increasing engagement, I want to help the sellers. When you say sellers in this context, you
Sorry,
creators?
I didn't mean sellers. I mean creators.
Creators, okay, got it.
I mean, I guess maybe another way to put it. Sorry, I didn't mean creators. I meant like which one of these use cases, and that's actually a really good point that you point out. There's basically two sides of a marketplace, right? On YouTube, there's the creators and then there's the viewers.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking a little bit more about given that this is a social feature and this is about YouTube trying to drive overall engagement, I would, at least for this exercise, probably focus a little bit more on the viewers. Like, how do we make the viewer experience more social and engaging? Because that's where you can get that massive lift of engagement. Usually most marketplaces have this, 80-20 rule where, 20% of the people generate 80% of the content. So you can imagine that, the viewers are much bigger than the creators.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I mean,
so,
I think that all sounds reasonable, and I agree. Like, if you're going for an engagement lift, focusing on the viewers, which is the vast majority of the audience on YouTube, that seems logical to me.
yeah. And so I think that where I was trying to get to, and apologies if I wasn't clear, is which one of these use cases would benefit the most from having additional social features, right? Is it social features in news? Is it social features in education? Is it social features and entertainment?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I was thinking about. And so when I think about that, I think that we can probably look and be like, hey, news is interesting, but I don't know what you could really do to make the news experience more social. I mean, I think there's other platforms that do that better, like Twitter and Facebook, for example. I think entertainment's an obvious one where you could have a share viewed experience, or maybe you can interact with the creator. Although I think that there are other platforms that might do that better, and I guess YouTube also has a live feature, so that kind of already exists.
Yeah.
I think what's actually kind of interesting is this emerging trend of learning, and how do you make learning more social? And the reason why I think that's interesting is I think that there's some pauses with making the learning experience more social. It can help increase the motivation to learn something. I think when you're learning something by yourself versus learning in a group setting, you often feel a little bit more motivated.
Yep.
You can actually engage and learn and have a quicker feedback loop in terms of how do you actually get to the outcome that you want, which is why you're watching the video, for example. And then 3 is to celebrate the success that you have when you actually accomplish something. I think that if you were able to somehow do that, the learning experience would be just so much better. And I think that's why if I had to pick an area to dig a little bit deeper into, is like, how do we make the YouTube learning experience more social?
Okay, that's interesting. I think that
Cool.
seems like there would be a lot of benefits of successfully launching something there, like a lot of good
Yeah.
it could do in the world.
Yeah. So if we were to dig into that a little bit deeper, I guess the question is like, what's wrong with the learning experience now, right, on YouTube? And I think that there's a couple of areas that I could think of. The first is that there's so many videos on every single topic that I don't really know which is the best video that I should watch that is most relevant to me given who I am. And so I think if there's a way for me to better discover the most relevant learning videos, from a, that might be interesting.
Okay.
I think the second thing would be when I'm watching the video, it's a very like solo experience, and I'm not able to get any feedback or understand if other people have similar questions, and so it's a very not it's a very not social experience right now.
Yeah.
And I think the third thing is, I don't have a lot of confidence necessarily when I watch the video that I will be able to get the outcome that whatever the video is showing me, because I have no social evidence that it worked for other people. And so, that's also an area where I think that might be interesting as well.
Interesting.
And then I think the fourth thing might be, I don't have a lot of, when I think about the social, there's not a lot of gamification in terms of motivating me. Like sometimes learning materials is not just one video, right? It's a series of videos. And so I feel like sometimes I just watch the first one and then kind of lose interest. It'd be interesting if there's a more of a gamification or like a way to continue to motivate me to finish an entire objective. So the 4 problems, just to kind of reiterate, is one is like discovering the right content. 2 is making sure it's a more engaging kind of engaging experience where I'm learning with other people. The third one is having proof points and evidence that I can do this with, that this video will actually yield the outcome to give me confidence. And the fourth one is how do I continue to sustain the motivation, especially for videos that are multi-part. And if I had to prioritize this, I think you would think about it as like which problems do you think happen most often, and which ones have the biggest gap,
Yeah.
and then finally which one's gonna really provide a lot of value in terms of yielding the outcome that you want. And I think the first one is, to be honest, if I had to think about it, technically that's what the algorithm should be doing, trying to find the best content. I thought maybe there's an idea where people could like vote, but algorithms are probably gonna be more efficient.
Yeah.
The second problem I'm watching together with other people, I think that's just going to be a really tough problem, because you're relying on some type of synchronous. People have to feel comfortable with like having a live video session. These are strangers. Like I just don't know if it's really
Yeah.
going to be that successful.
Yeah.
I think the third one and the fourth one are interesting. So the third one being, how do I get more social proof points that this video will actually work? And then finally the fourth one around the gamification.
Okay.
I think between those two, I'd probably go with the third one just because the gamification multi-part series is probably a subset of videos. And so if I had to focus on one problem that had the most reach and impact and could be compelling, I would probably focus on the third one, which is how do we make it more social such that when I watch a video, I feel and have confidence that, I can yield a similar outcome
Okay.
that the video is showing me. Does
Got it.
that sound like something that we could focus on?
You want to focus on using social to drive a higher percentage of like the desired learning outcome from the video, whether it's how to like
Right.
cook a steak or learn how to do an interview or something like that.
Right, and I think what's really interesting about that is like we're seeing this new wave of people just remixing videos of like dance videos on TikTok, right? Where someone will come up with a tutorial, and then suddenly everyone is doing the same tutorial, and then suddenly everyone feels like they can do it because like everyone under the sun is doing it, and so I feel like you could have a similar impact,
Yeah.
but for like YouTube learning videos, like cooking something, for example.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Cool.
cool. So then the question is like, how do we solve this? Like, what are the different ways in which we would be able to do this? And some interesting ideas that come to mind is, you have the probably the simplest solution. It's like, hey, share your success. So once you finish completing a video, make a post, maybe a little testimonial. And that can give me some confidence, right? Because when I go to the video, maybe there would be like a gallery at the bottom that shows all the other people that have completed this video and the success that they've had.
Yeah.
I think another one that might be interesting would be if there was an easy way for us to have people that are comfortable sharing kind of their progress as they watch the video, right? So maybe they have a video that is taking snapshots of them throughout it. And so as I'm
Mhm.
watching it and I'm seeing let's say Gordon Ramsay cooking, there's this ability for me to see how other people are doing as well. And that might be interesting.
Yeah.
I think a third thing might be interesting is um, if there was a way for me to see other people recreate the same video, um, and maybe create some shorter form content. So more of that TikTok like model, right? Like, is
Yeah,
there a
this is
way
like
that
the mimetic, like, hey, I saw Gordon Ramsay doing this. Like, here's me doing the same thing.
right? Exactly. And if I want to go into more detail, I can maybe link back to the Gordon Ramsay link as well.
Yeah.
And so I think what's interesting here is that it probably will enable a new set of creators and then also keep me as a viewer more engaged because it feels more authentic. It feels like it's not just Gordon Ramsay, this professional chef that's making this stuff. It's like, Kenton made this amazing, sous vide chicken with like basil and peppermint and stuff. And I can do that too.
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting to me as well. And I'm trying to think if there's any other thing that's a little bit wilder.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, if you could get like, if you could get like VR going somehow and like, you're learning something, other people are learning at the same time and, you can see the actions, but I think that's a little bit far out there. So we'll just put that aside until we get there. So I think, we have the, very feasible solution, which is simple post, share. We have one where we try to take snapshots so you can see the progress. And I think the third one is like ability to remix content easily. I think if I had to pick one where I feel like, being a little bit more ambitious, but also knowing that there's some proof points that this will succeed, and drive a lot of engagement. I think the first one's just not super compelling. I think the second one is interesting, but if I were just to push my team a little bit more, and again, it probably depends on the time frame. But let's say we had not 6 months, but let's say a year, right? Because
Okay.
6 months, I probably would go with the second option. But let's say we had with a year, just to be a little fun with this. I would go with the third option, which is how do we make the content super easy to remix
Hmm.
and enable other people to like see that very engaging content
Yeah.
throughout YouTube. And it could be, in multiple different formats. It could be in short form content. It could be in like story like formats. I know YouTube recently looked into that as well. So I think there's a lot of interesting, um, ways that this could go.
Yeah.
So from here, I'm gonna just quickly pause. Like, any questions? Does that make sense? If not, if so, then I can kind of move on to like how we might build this.
Yeah, so I think it makes sense. I think actually all three of those ideas were like pretty interesting. I thought like the idea of like snapshots of like, hey, this is like the snapshot that Kenton took of his own progress like 3 minutes into this video, and like 3 minutes into the main video, I can see that like Kenton's uploaded. This is like what his sous vide chicken looks like at this point. It's kind of fun, certainly from the recipe use case. I think that makes sense. I think, and maybe you're going to get to this in the how would we build the third one, which you've
Yeah.
prioritized. Is the thing that open question in my mind is how do you sort of induce or encourage people to like start taking this mimetic behavior where they start actually like remixing or rehashing these videos.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting perspective. So I think even though we started a little bit more on the viewer side as we went down this path, I think right now we're going to focus on how is the creator, how do we enable more creators, and again we're seeing this trend making it extremely easy for them to make content because they're not making original content, they're just remixing
Yeah.
content. And so the question is like, how do we one make it easy for them to do this. Two, ideally it's some type of mobile format because likely what they're going to be doing is they're probably going to be doing this on their phone. And then three, how do we make sure that it's high quality, right? It's going to be ease of use, accessibility, and quality. These
Yeah.
are probably the three things that are going to be in my mind. Um, for us to build something that makes sense. And so let's start with the ease part of this problem. How do we make this easy? And I think the way that we can make this easy for them is if we were able to basically take a video that, let's say, let's use the cooking example just because we've been kind of on that,
Yeah.
where and this is going to be we'll have to figure out what the best way to do this is, but the outcome that you really want to get to is a world in which you can basically cut the video into a couple different sections based on maybe you can do some natural language processing, so that the cooking is going to be cut into these different steps, and then you can cut the video into these 4 steps, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Right. And then once you do that, then um the creator that has now watched the viewer that has watched this video is like, okay, you know what, I want to remix this video. So they've watched it once, they're like, I want to remix this video. They said remix, we basically cut into these different 4 videos, and then now as they're watching it, they can basically use the front side camera and start recording them doing these each individual steps, if that makes sense, right? And so they'd be like, hey, step one, Gordon Ramsay saying these things. And maybe we can actually filter out the sound because we know the sound's coming from the YouTube, and just really focus on the person. And then they can basically just kind of recreate the video as they're watching it, if that really makes sense. So it's almost like you're saving some time for them. And so that's the way that you make it super easy. And then the second thing is it's mobile because it's on their mobile device, and we're using that front side camera to grab it to them. I think the next part is going to be a little bit of the challenging part. Is like, how do we make it high quality? Like, how do we make it fun?
Yeah.
And I think there's a couple of things that we need to do. When I think about when content is high quality, the video quality obviously has to be good. So I'm hoping that they have a good phone. I don't think there's much we can do if it's low resolution. But I think the other thing is that you make it short and you make sure that you capture the most important parts of it. And then the second thing is that you add some type of effects. So it could be like music to make it a little bit more fun and engaging. I think the second thing is you add captions because nowadays a lot of people actually, when they watch videos, they might not have the sound going, so they just like also look at the videos is also a really good way to engage people. So I think adding a little bit of music, and then occasionally adding some captions as well, because then you can have this format show up in multiple different places within YouTube. And I'm trying to think what else might be interesting as well to include in terms of trying to improve the quality. I think what I'm trying to stray away from is giving them too much editing control, because I just think that they could go down this huge rabbit hole. And what I'm trying to get to is for them to really feel confident in producing this content as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I mean,
So that's one of the things that we'll have to experiment, right? Like, do we feel confident enough to create the quality content, or do we have to give them more editing controls? It's probably something that we'll have to dig deeper into.
yeah.
Sorry, do you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I was thinking about as you were describing this sort of process of like using your mobile, sort of like cutting the source video into segments, and then the viewer is sort of filming themselves, like kind of going through those different segments, is you know like it almost feels like they're like creating the story, like an Instagram story like version of them doing the video. So it's not like if
Yeah,
the video is 20 minutes, that they're trying to recreate a 20-minute video of them doing it, but
yeah,
like the highlight reel of their attempt to do it.
right. And actually, I think the other really interesting too, I just thought about is like, if you're cutting the video on when Gordon Ramsay's cooking and then you're recording yourself, what would be really fun is you have like a side by side view, right? We could cut the video into half so you can see it at the same time as I'm cooking it and Gordon Ramsay's cooking it. You know what that looks like, and maybe the viewing experience could be that too. Like, I'm watching Gordon Ramsay and I can just like swipe on the
Yeah,
right side and see all these other people doing the same thing, and it would be really kind of fun in that way, right? And see how
yeah,
people also remixing it that way.
yeah, totally. I think that that does sound fun. Like that would
Yeah,
be enjoyable, I think.
yeah. I mean, it, it's ridiculous how often I've seen the same dance video, but I'll watch it again because it's like someone slightly different that's doing it that has a slightly different take on it, and I think that this could offer that type of opportunity.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think we've talked roughly about, what are the most important elements, and how we would actually go about, solving that. I guess, did you want to go into more detail in terms of what success would look like, and how we would actually roll it out, or
I think
you know,
I think what would be good, sort of coming up on time here, but maybe just like imagine you sort of want like we get the feature you were talking about, which is like the storyification like remix of these videos. Just tell me a little bit about how you would think about measuring success and figuring out okay what's working versus what are we going to have to iterate on in V2.
yeah, no, no, definitely. I think at the end of the day, we come back to the goal, right? Which is how do we increase engagement for viewers on this learning content? And we recognize that the solution that we think, or I think, is going to be very compelling is if we can help create these remix videos. And so while the top line goal is going to be viewer engagement, I think the goal for this product is going to be, what is the number of successful like quality videos that we can basically create remix, right? And so I think the quality is really going to be important in this first step. And
Mm,
so, the things I'm going to track is um, so quality video is going to be the outcome. But then obviously, in terms of how do we think about iterating? Well, we're going to want to understand kind of the funnel, like how many people discover this feature, how many people decide to use this feature, how many people actually complete using this feature, and then ultimately, what's quality? Quality, uh, I'm sure YouTube would have some type of metric, but it's probably some level of engagement where people stick and watch this video beyond a certain amount of time. So
yeah,
let's say it's a minute or 30 seconds, right? This is the quality time. And so ultimately where I'm trying to get to is like, hey, success for me is if we get to a point where we see X amount of high quality videos coming from this on a daily basis. So X percentage of penetration, and having this quality video. So I think that's kind of how it measures success initially. And then from there, we can iterate and figure out how do we actually, scale this out.
got it. Okay, cool. One last question for you: if you got this to work in the education space, and we were sort of using this cooking example. Do you think it's scalable to other content areas we have on YouTube, and why or why not?
Yeah, I think that it would be anything where it's about replicating someone's actions is going to be obviously scalable. So that might be fixing a car, that might be, some woodworking, all these types of instruction materials. And then I think that, with entertainment, I think that's probably the next largest category on YouTube, if not the largest category on YouTube. And I think there'd be some fun stuff around like mimicking and acting
Yeah.
other people's, right? And I think I've also, I mean, not to copy TikTok, they've done a lot of great things, but I also see a lot of these videos where there's like this voice track, and then someone just like mimics the reactions between two characters, and I feel like you could probably use something similar in YouTube and extend to there as well.
Yep. Yep. I think that sounds good. And I think entertainment is probably the logical next category. News probably is a little tough, and there's probably some sensitive issues around everyone rehashing their own
Right.
version of the news right now, given sort of alternative facts and all that type of stuff. But this sounds like a fun feature.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool.